All right, we are live. Not sure if we are. Um, I am not sure if we are live on Facebook or not. If not, we're going to share this on Facebook later. So, welcome everyone to our first virtual Shiki Salon. We have done these in the past in New Orleans. The first year we were at Sukhothai, and then the second year, um, Regina Serafino had a different location. And then we skipped a year because of COVID and lockdown. And this year we decided we would be virtual as a way to engage more people. So Masaoka Shiki was one of the Haiku Masters. There are 4 that are considered masters, and he is one of them. He passed away in 1912, so he's the most recent to become an ancestor out of the haiku traditions. And some others are Itza, Basho, and mine is, I'm sorry, there's 4 altogether. Let's put it that way. Anybody that wants to know more, please Google it. There's lots and lots and lots of information about haiku in the world. And so I know that Regina is on here too, and we're going to be monitoring the chat as we go, because we would love for people to share things. Regina actually has things to share from her students. So she runs an art club that is part of New Harmony High School here in New Orleans, and her students have written haiku that was inspired by Shiki, and they've also created artwork inspired by him as well. And she's going to be sharing those things. I'm just going to let her know that we're on. So we're coordinating this via text as well. So we're in a very brand new world of technology for both of us. And yeah, it's a new way for communicating, and also for connecting with folks, and sharing the work of Shiki, who is personally one of my favorite. So I'm going to read a little bit about him. And so in early May of 1902, 4 months before his death, Shiki began writing his final essay series called 6 Foot, 6 Bed, which was serialized in the newspaper Nippon, for which he was a staff writer. So, for clarity, Shiki had tuberculosis, and it ended up being spinal tuberculosis, which caused him incredible amounts of pain. He spent the last years of his life bedridden, unable really to move, and yet he was still working. Like, he was working for newspapers. He was leading haiku salons in his home. I think the last one that he led was in 1901, so that would have been a year before he died. And I'm correcting myself, I said he died in 1912. He actually died in 1902. But during the last years of his life, even though he was in a sick bed, he was still creating work. And so this is a quote from him: "A 6-foot sick bed. This is my world. And this sick bed, 6 feet long, is too big for me. Sometimes I have only to stretch my arm a bit to touch the tectomy, but at other times I can't even relax by pushing my legs outside the covers. In extreme cases, I'm relaxed, but am tormented by such terrible pain that I'm unable to move my body so much as an inch, or even half an inch. Racked by pain, anguish, shrieks, morphine, I search for a way out, helplessly craving a little peace on a road that leads to death. All the same, as long as I stay alive, I intend to say whatever I feel like saying, day in and day out. All I ever see are newspapers and magazines, but often I am in such pain I cannot read them. When I can, they make me angry or irritated. But once in a while, something makes me so happy I forget my pain, feeling like someone who has been sleeping for 6 whole years and knows nothing of the outside world. I write this preface by way of introducing myself. So that is a quick introduction to Shiki, who, oh, there's Beckett. So we have two cats. They cross our stream at some point. Sophie the mini tiger, Sophie the mini panther, and Beckett the mini tiger. And that's Beckett the mini tiger. And yeah, so Shiki had a life that was full of wonder for the world. When he was younger, he was athletic, and baseball was one of his favorite sports. He loved American baseball. And he contributed a lot to the world of haiku. So for those who may not be familiar, I used to be a member of the New Orleans Haiku Society. We were around for 14 years. We used to meet regularly at Ladder Library, and we would write our haiku and share them. We used to go on ginkgos, which are haiku walks, where we would go to a pre-decided location and walk for an hour, and then we would come back together to share our writing. And we also were part of the Japan Fest that used to happen at the New Orleans Museum of Art. We used to run a table where we would engage people in haiku writing. In fact, in a little while, we're going to be doing some haiku writing. We're going to be using this. Another member of the New Orleans Haiku Society, who is now an ancestor, her name is Juliet Angel Sear Pizarra. And this was a gift that she gave me that I have yet to open. So I thought today would be a perfect day to open it, and we can make some haiku together in a little while. And so in Japanese tradition, haiku or death days are often held in great reverence. And there are some calendars that place Shiki's death day on Christmas Eve. So in 2018, Regina Serafino and I decided we were going to begin holding salons on Christmas Eve in honor of Shiki. And we've done a couple of them live in person, and we skipped a year, and now we're doing this virtually. So to go back to the New Orleans Haiku Society, it was there that I learned. So in English, in school, we are taught to write haiku using a 5-7-5 format. 5 syllables for the first line, 7 for the second, and 5 for the last line. And that's a quick way to attempt to teach people poetic form. However, really, that's only if you speak Japanese. Really, a haiku is a one-breath poem, something that can be said in a very short amount of words. So I remember once when we were meeting for the New Orleans Haiku Society, we had a guest, and her poem that she shared that day was "Crows punctuate snow." Crows punctuate snow. And I was so excited by this that I started doing those too. I tried to see what was the shortest thing I could write that would actually still make sense. And really, they should have a season word in them. That's Japanese tradition. There should be a season word, but really they could be as short as you want to make them, as long as they can still communicate what it is that you want to communicate. It's also fitting that we do this live stream today because we're right at solstice. We're right at the turning of the year, which Juliet Sear Pizarra held to be a very sacred time. This is the time of the longest night, and it's also the time when the sun begins to return. So I'm a nerd. I read lots of stuff. I study lots of things. When I get excited about something, I research it and research it and research it. So through my research, I learned that what happens, the reason why the days get shorter is that there's 1 minute less sunlight at sunrise and sunset, beginning at summer solstice. But that's why we don't really feel it when it's happening. for the beginning part. So we lose a minute of sunlight on each end, and the sunset and the sunrise, until we get to winter solstice, which is the longest night of the year. And then from winter solstice on, we begin to add a minute of daylight at the sunrise and a minute of daylight at the sunset. And so we add this light adds until we got back to summer solstice. So it's this big circle of the year. It's a circle of ongoing light, ongoing time. And I'm going to share something that Juliet wrote about this time of year. It was actually a suggestion that she had for people. And so her idea was to focus on goals at this time of year. And her suggestion was to take a piece of paper and write down your goals and aspirations for the next 6 months. Put passion and feeling into it. What do you hope to accomplish in the next 6 months? What do you hope to work on during the next 6 months? When you're done writing, seal this note up in an envelope and put it away. On the summer solstice in June, you may open it, add to it, or just reflect on your accomplishments. Celebrate you. At this time of year, Uranus going direct can feel like a Mercury retrograde. Everyone may be feeling more distracted or off right now. Uranus moving toward Aries can mean people will be more testy or impatient. Please, just relax and know when to take a break, even from yourself. So those are some words of wisdom from the great beyond. I'm going to just check in and see if I can see her. All right. I am going to share the link with her. This is so we're both of us in a learning curve right now, because we've both never done this before and technology is not our greatest strength. And I'm going to add her. Let's see if it adds. Let's see if this is helpful. So I'm going to share it on Facebook. And we'll see if she sees it. Yes. So this is a new world that we live in, right? Our world of technology and interconnection. So I'm going to read a couple of poems by Masaoka Shiki. All right. Here we go. So this is all, what I'm reading to you is from the Poetry Foundation. So anyone who's interested in learning more about Shiki, if you Google poetryfoundation.org, you'll find some of his writings up there. So, the sick crane, plum blossoms falling as clearness comes back in the clear cold. The sick crane, plum blossoms falling as clearness comes back in the clear cold. I'm going to use a convention that we always or most often used when we were in the Haiku Society, which is we would read poems twice to help them sink in. So, okay, I'm going to just let her know I'm not sure what to do because I've never done this. Yes, indeed. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let's read another one by Shiki. Wow. Yeah, so they're laid out very, very interestingly on this page. Maybe we can find another one. So there's actually a link called masterpieceofjapaneseculture.com, and it has lots of poems in it, spring ones, summer, um, many different poems. So this is one from springtime. I got drunk, asleep, and wept on in the dream, a wild cherry blossom. I got drunk, asleep, and wept on in the dream, a wild cherry blossom. I'm going to just check our live stream and make sure that we don't have any comments there. I don't see any there. Also going to check Facebook to see if there's any comments happening there. Yep. What happens when I click on this? Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. So, yes, hopefully Regina will be able to get on here soon because she she has a lot of stuff to share from her students who've been working on this. All right. In the meantime, let's read another. This is another springtime poem. Fluttering, floating in the breeze, a single butterfly. Fluttering, floating in the breeze, a single butterfly. There's another one. The town of Nara is really old-fashioned, the hazy moon. The town of Nara is really old-fashioned, the hazy moon. I'm going to see if I can go into some winter poems from him. Ah, yes, and our masters. We have Basho, Itza, Busan, that was the one I was blanking on earlier, and Shiki. Now, there are some who include others in the list. I was taught that there are four original masters of haiku, and I'm sure that there are many, many others that have also shared. But yes, the ones that I learned about were Basho, Itza, Buson, and Shiki. Yes, so let's go back up here to see if we can click on the ones for the winter in particular. Ah, yes, here we go. With some winter poems by Shiki. So here's one. It seems as cold. My mother is asleep in the futon. It seems as cold. My mother is asleep in the futon. Another one from Winter by Shiki. It's interesting. Like one upon another, the umbrellas in the snow. It's interesting. Like one upon another, the umbrellas in the snow. Another one from Winter. Repeatedly. How deep is the snow? I asked. Repeatedly. How deep is the snow? I asked. Something else to mention. So he was bedridden for the last several years of his life. And during that time, where his bed was positioned, he could actually look out the window. And so for a lot of his writing, he was imagining or remembering what it used to be like to be able to go outside and move around. Um, and he was also using the haiku to express his experiences. And he was writing essays too um, during this time. And so I'm going to go back into this beautiful. So there's this wonderful essay, which I'm gonna put the link right now into the live stream so that anybody who's watching this at some point will have a chance to look it up, what I'm reading from. So the link I just popped in is there are different there are different there are writings about Shiki and about his literary style. And here's a quote from this essay. This higher level of being can be characterized as objective self-awareness. By being able to take a more objective view of his painful life, Shiki was able to reach a level beyond rationality, where even a miserable life could not inhibit laughter. Shiki reached the point where he could simply love nature and sketch in words and paintings what seems mundane and unnoticed, and bring the humble images of life into high relief and visible in a new light. So he was writing, he was also creating art too while he was confined to bed. And so his life, I find him incredibly inspirational because even though he was in excruciating pain and he had this pain for years, he was still able to create. He was still able to hold down a job. Like he was still writing for the newspaper as well as holding haiku salons in his home. Like he persisted in life until he passed on to the next realm. And even like he even wrote a haiku just a few hours before he passed away. So he was creating work up until the moment that he transitioned. So this is a quote from Shiki during this time period. Even if I was lying on the sick bed year round, day and night, and always enjoy looking up, even at a bonsai tree that is 3 shaku high, about 3 feet, when I was a little distressed by morphine. I want to laugh at myself, who was bothered a while ago. So that's from a quote from 1902. Okay. So it says, in other words, the true meaning of these works cannot be understood unless seen from Shiki's point of view. Many of Shiki's important works cannot be understood without sharing the viewpoint of Shiki, the bedridden patient. The same can be said for the next unpublished haiku, created at the same time as Byosho Ruko Saku in the summer of 1902, probably one of his final works. It will come to peck at my living eyes, voice of fly. It will come to peck at my living eyes, voice of fly. So, yes, so I've been reading a bunch of Shiki's work. I'm going to just check our to see if there's comments. All right. Okay. Nope. And let's look at the Facebook here and see if anything is posted up there on the Facebook. Let's see. All right, I'll check. Okay. As I said, we're figuring this out. All right. Okay. So I'm going to, let's see. All right. So this is an image. I mentioned that Regina has been working with students at New Harmony High School here in New Orleans. And so this is an example of one of their Shiki inspired works. And it says, bugs in the wind. teasing the frogs on the pond, dodging tongues. Bugs in the wind, teasing the frogs on the pond, dodging the tongues. And this haiku also has corresponding artwork that went with it, a lovely watercolor painting. So this was created by one of her students in the art club. Okay, so she says she's on. So I'm going to ask Regina, just please keep sending me these and I will share them as you send them. And while I wait for her to send me another, I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to be sharing some of Juliet Sear Pizzera's haiku today as well, both about the year and about death and dying. So she published a book that was called The Dad Project, and it was a way for her to process the passing of her father. And so it was edited by Nicholas Sola, and it's still available for any that are interested. You can buy it on Amazon. And so some of these poems, although they're very specific to her father's passing, are also kind of relevant for this time of year as well. And because she herself died suddenly on July 7th of this year. So I'm going to read two right now. Diamond, the anniversary they almost had. Diamond, the anniversary they almost had. Get well cards turn into sympathy cards. Get well cards turn into sympathy cards. A subtle language I cannot understand. Death's paperwork. A subtle language I cannot understand. Death's paperwork. Dark moon. We plan father's funeral. Dark moon. We plan father's funeral. Open bar. Father would approve. Open bar. Father would approve. Ice rattles in her glass. A deep breath. Ice rattles in her glass. A deep breath. Sharing tears over old photographs. Closed casket. Sharing tears over old photographs. Closed casket. We are more than this body. Beating heart. We are more than this body. Beating heart. The lingering snow taps. The lingering snow taps. Okay, I'm going to come back to Juliet's work in a little while. I just heard my phone. And here is another one. So I'm gonna blow it up first so we can see this beautiful illustration. So this illustration is by one of Regina Serafina's students from New Harmony High School. And this beautiful illustration has an accompanying haiku here. Where have the frogs gone? They flourish in favorite hideouts. For how long? Where have the frogs gone? They flourish in favorite hideouts. For how long? And that one is by Maya Gillian. So in here, I'll make it a little smaller so we can see the whole thing here. This is, I hope I said her name right. This is Maya's writing, as well as her beautiful illustration. And we'll just keep doing this. We'll keep posting. So Regina, just keep sending them to me so I can share them. Um, I am not sure why the chat feature is not working. I do not know. So because it's not working here, I'm going to ask if people are on the live stream, if you could also be on Facebook, and if you can post some chats, if you can post on Facebook on the page where I shared the link. If you want to share anything, if you want to share your own writing, if you want to share, if you have a favorite work by Shiki, or if you have a favorite work by another haiku poet that you would like for me to read, I would be happy to do that. If you are unable to post it in the chat feature here on YouTube, if you could put it on to my Facebook page where I shared the link, I'll be happy to read it, and I will be checking periodically to see what's up there. Okay, so going back to Shiki, go back to, so this is a poem that he wrote a year ago. It's a tanka, which he wrote, and it's dated May 4th, 1901. The wall iris opens its buds before my eyes. The last spring begins to fade. The wall iris opens its buds before my eyes. The last spring begins to fade. Shiki despised May because his physical condition worsened every year in the midst of spring. Also, in this verse above, we can see that he is terribly irritated and pained. But in fact, he was able to see the spring of the following year. In this way, in his later years, Shiki always understood that death was coming for him. However, he struggled most when he reread the old Chinese poetry that he wrote when he was in his 20s. So this is a poem that he wrote over a decade earlier. One cry under the lonely moon, it coughs blood. I cannot bear to listen. Halfway through the night, I strain my ears in vain. 10,000 of clouds over my old home. Long before Shiki became ill, as an adolescent, he wrote of the cry of the little cuckoo, or Shiki. It seems that the poet unwittingly intuned his future as a tuberculosis patient. In poems of East Asia, the China and Japan, Shiki is a symbol of a dying poet. The pronunciation of this Shiki also leads to another word, Shiki, which means time of death in Japanese. Historian Donald Keene explains the significance of this bird metaphor. This early mention of the Hoto Gisu, a bird whose cries suggest it is coughing blood, has an ominous ring as the work of an 11-year-old, seeming to foretell Shiki's death 24 years later. Shiki was the Sino-Japanese name for the Hoto Gisu. The image of the Hoto Gisu would run throughout Shiki's writings. So that is why Shiki adopted the name Shiki when he became a haiku poet, because of its symbolism. All right, I've just got some more fabulous art and writings from Regina, so I'm going to share these. So first is this beautiful sketch of a frog. So this wonderful sketch of a frog accompanies, it's an illustration that accompanies a haiku. I'm going to read the haiku next. Jumping endlessly, pad to pad, searching for frogs. Jumping endlessly, pad to pad, searching for frogs. And this is by Isaiah. And it also has another part, jumps away with denial. Jumps away with denial. I'll share the illustration again too, because it's of a beautiful frog here. So that's the illustration that accompanies that poem. There's another one here. This one also has an illustration. Oh, it's actually got two parts to it here. If I can pull up both of them, I may not be able to. All right, so I'll show, this is the poem and illustration. So, and it says, Froggy, hop, hop, hop. Froggy hops to the light. Froggy says, bye-bye. Froggy, hop, hop, hop. Froggy hops to the light. Froggy says, bye-bye. And I think that's supposed to be the frog in its pond there. That's what the illustration is. And here's another one. So this one also has a beautiful accompanying illustration. So there's the illustration as well as the poem. And the poem says, the wind starts to pick up. Leaves start to blow heavily. Winter is approaching. The wind starts to pick up. Leaves start to blow heavily. Winter is approaching. So there's the beautiful illustration as well as the accompanying haiku. And here's another. Also has a lovely accompanying illustration here. This one says, frog is cool. Love frog. Frog is amazing. Bird hungry. Oh, no, no. No more frog. Frog is cool. Love frog. Frog is amazing. Bird hungry. Oh, no. No more frog. So I guess that's the illustration is for the end of the poem. All right, I'm going back here. Here's another one. It has an illustration too that goes with it. Some lovely designs there to accompany it. And it says, Froggy falls in lake, so deep into the water. Froggy is no more. Froggy falls in lake, so deep into the water. Froggy is no more. And here's another one. So I forgot to mention earlier, these students that Regina is working with were also learning how to use brush style, the way the Japanese form of illustration. So that's something that they worked on as they were working on their haiku. This one says, swimming froggy smells. Froggy gets bullied by birds. Life sucks. Swimming froggy smells. Froggy gets bullied by birds. Life sucks. And this one does not have an illustration to go with it. It's very high contrast. And the words are, grasshopper leaps. Leaf froggy eats grass. Grasshopper munch froggy is a munch. Grasshopper leaps. Leaps. Froggy eats grass. Hopper munch. Froggy is a munch. All right. And let's see. Here's another one, also with an adorable accompanying illustration here. So there's the illustration that accompanies the student writing. So it says, I have two cats. They are playing. They love to run. I have two cats. They are playing. They love to run. All right, and there's another poem here. This one also doesn't have an accompanying illustration per se. Froggy jumps, jumps. Alligator chomps and chomps. Gator eats Froggy. Froggy jumps, leap jumps. Alligator chomp chomps. Gator eats Froggy. All right, here's another one. Oh, this is cool. So it doesn't exactly have an illustration, but it's done like as a cartoon bubble. So it's kind of the illustration is integrated with the haiku. It says, Froggy falls in lake, so deep into the water. Froggy is no more. Ah, so this one accompanies one that I just read a moment ago here. Froggy falls in lake, so deep into the water. Froggy is no more. And this one I really like because it's very philosophical, right? So it does it mean that the froggy jumped so deep that he wasn't able to maintain swimming and he's now deceased? Or does it mean that the water is so deep we can't see him? So the no more is a no more for the viewer of the frog, not necessarily of the frog, that the frog is going on to have his froggy life in the deep water, and it's just no more that we can't see him. So I really like this one because it's kind of has philosophical. All right, and I'm so excited that I got to share these student works because they've been studying Shiki, and so as I mentioned, Shiki was both a writer and an illustrator. Oh, here's another one. So this is one in progress here, and it doesn't have an accompanying illustration yet. It says grass, tall, 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 grass, tall, tall, tall. And that's good. That goes back to something talked about a while ago, which is not necessarily 575. Haiku can be one word. So to say grass, tall, tall, tall evokes all kinds of things, right? It could invoke comfort. Some people like to be in the tall grass. Some people are afraid of the tall grass because they can't see what's lurking in it. If a frog is in the tall grass, they might be there because they're hunting. So it might be good. They might be using the grass for cover while they wait for the fly or an insect to come. Something might be in the tall grass waiting for the frog, just like in one of those other poems where the alligator was eating the frog. Maybe an alligator is waiting in the grass, waiting for the frog to come. So many, many possibilities just from a few short amount of words. Okay, I'm going to check our Facebook again, see if anything is posted on here. Nope, I don't see anything. Hi, Nicholas. I see Nicholas Sola responded to the post, so that's good. Maybe he's on our live stream here right now. I'm not able to see how many people are streaming. This is the first time I've actually ever attempted to run a live stream on my own. I normally do it through my job, and other people like Constance Thompson, who are much more technologically savvy than I, help, and I'm just doing a few of the back end things. So I've never attempted to do this. For anyone who's tried to post in the chat here on Twitter, no, not Twitter, sorry, in the chat here on YouTube, I apologize. I don't know why the chat is not functioning properly. Yeah. Let's see. I don't want to touch anything because I also don't want to disconnect myself from anything. All right. Okay, so I'm going to read some more from this essay on Shiki, and I did drop the link for this essay in the chat here on the YouTube live stream. So for anybody that is interested in reading the article in its entirety, you'll be able to find it. It was published in the Journal of Philosophy and Ethics in Healthcare and Medicine. and it was published the 13th of December, 2019. So this is a quote from, it's almost lost in contemporary Japanese culture. And it says, "Rain washes away the blood. Just at the moment, a nightingale sings. Rain washes away the blood. Just at the moment, a nightingale sings." The poem is based on Ino, the battlefield of the Meiji Restoration. In this haiku, the Hoto Gisu is translated as nightingale, is just a bird which spits blood without philosophical import. However, the connection between one of Shiki's earliest works and his pen name is still a matter of theory. The decisive change in his philosophical and literary outlook occurred as his condition worsened from pulmonary tuberculosis and later spinal caries. Shiki later recalls that immediately after hearing the diagnosis, he felt that time had stopped for about 5 seconds. And that was in a letter that he wrote to a friend in March of 1896. As early as 1895, Shiki wrote the following in the same letter to his friend, Kiyoshi, one of his most gifted disciples in haiku, as well as a fraternal figure. "Many people in this world have great ambitions, but none so great as I. Most people are buried in the earth, still embracing their dreams, but no one will ever go beneath holding as fast as many as I. No matter how great my achievement in haiku, it will be as zero compared to the infinity of my dreams." Shiki was a very ambitious man. He was a student at the Imperial University in the 1890s. This was the first and only university in Japan at that time, so the classes had only a few dozen students, including Shiki. They were expected to become senior government officials or to serve as teachers at educational institutions that were established after another on behalf of foreigners who were hired at very high salaries. Tsuboshi Shoho, an upperclassman of Shiki's at the university, and from whom Shiki had learned English, was exceptionally well established in literature. And as a result, Tsushiboshi felt himself, along with other graduates at the time, as someone who would be responsible for the establishment of the Faculty of Literature at Waseda University, as well as becoming a leader in spreading Western theater to an increasingly modern and urban Japan. By contrast, Shiki had quit university, though almost everyone had encouraged him to change his mind. Shiki was greatly ashamed of having betrayed his family and hometown expectations. As a scholar from Matsumiya City, formerly Matsumiya Han, a local area of the Edo period, he defamed his family name, Masaoka, formerly a samurai. This failure to complete his degree at it is an early example of Shiki facing and confronting limits. However, it was his incurable disease that became the fatal limit for him, as evidenced by his last 2 published essays, both named after his literary and physical limitations, which were called A Drop of Ink, 6-Foot Sickbed. So this is a quote from another essay. It says, "By this time, Shiki made his statement. He seems to have adjusted to the limits of his world. The title of the diary itself, with its implication that his world was contained within the boundaries of a 6-foot sickbed, would indicate as much, as does the title of the diary he had written the previous year, A Drop of Ink. Both suggested that he had scaled down his expectations to the point where they no longer created needless frustrations. So, in his despair, it is likely that he would have considered suicide. However, no matter how hard he looked at his younger cousin, who had committed suicide, or some acquaintances, the first of which who had died at the young age of 17, Shiki's university roommate, for whom he had served as a chief mourner on behalf of his family, who died without being able to commit suicide, Shiki could not kill himself. However, Shiki must have had no desire to commit suicide, though he had thought of it. In a famous description dated October 13th, 1901, he writes with tears that he had nearly succumbed to a suicidal urge, but he could not die because of the suspected pain before his own death. It wasn't that he decided not to die, but rather that he felt he was unable to die. This description is memorable. The house has become silent. Now I was alone. Lying on my left side, I stared at the writing set before me. 4 or 5 worn-out brushes and a thermometer, and on top of them, lying quite exposed, a blunt little knife, a couple of inches long and 2 inches wide. The suicidal feeling that sometimes sweeps over me, even when I am not in such a state, suddenly surged up. The thought had already flashed through my head while I was writing the telegram message. But I could hardly kill myself with that blunt little knife or the eye letter. I knew a razor was in the next room if I could only get there. Once I had a razor, cutting my throat would be no problem. But sad to say, I cannot even crawl now. If no other way existed, cutting my windpipe with a little knife would not be impossible. Or I could pierce a hole in my heart with the eye letter. I could certainly kill myself in that way, but I wondered if I would die immediately if I drilled 3 or 4 holes. I thought over every possibility, but to tell the truth, fear won out, and in the end, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I wasn't afraid of death, but of the pain. I thought that if I found the pain of my sickness unbearable, how much more horrible the pain would be if I botched my suicide. But that was not all. When I looked at the knife, I felt something like a current of fear flowing from it and welling up inside me. At the end of his diary, Shiki drew pictures of the knife and the eye letter and wrote 4 Chinese letters. The voice of the hell tormented from Shiki. So that's what his illustration. Yes, so Shiki lived through many things and pushed through many things. Okay, so I have some more things from um, from Regina. So she sends a text that says, my earlier Japanese translation of grass tall, tall, tall was too formal or verbose, not poetic like the refreshingly imaginative haiku. This morning I got a new, simpler colloquy, true, real, serious version. It goes like this: grass, alone, magi. Okay, so the text I'm reading here is in a combination of Japanese and English, and I'm going to do my best not to butcher the Japanese. I do not speak Japanese, so um, yes. So kusa is the Japanese word for grass. Dake de alone. Honma which is true. It says Western Japan's dialect is different from the Eastern, hokoi. Magi, which means real or the latest. And gachi is serious. Okay, so Regina also wants us to know that the pens were transferred and all of the work of these students that I shared earlier is not finished. And they are in the process of getting their writing published. So Mr. Yoshi is a wonderful Japanese man that Regina has known for a very long time. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Yoshi in 2018, and he has been assisting us with these haiku salons that honor Shiki and Shiki's life and his writings. And so Mr. Yoshi is working on helping get the students' work published. And so Yoshi Yamagami is a 40-year translator from the White House, and he's the first Fulbright scholar from 1955. And so he's the one that translated the grass, tall, tall, tall. So yes, Mr. Yoshi is an incredible writer, incredible person, and it's amazing and wonderful that he's working on helping the students get their work published. Okay, I'm going to read a couple more poems by Juliet Cyr-Pizzera from her book, The Dad Project, that she wrote in honor of Joseph Andrew Pizzera. Joseph Andrew Pizzera was her father, and so these are a couple more from her. Frozen River, a family mourns. Frozen river, a family mourns. Snow-covered stillness, cemetery plot. Stone-covered stillness, a cemetery plot. Old gravestone, we plant fresh flowers. Old gravestone, we plant fresh flowers. Winter sunrise, my mother stands a widow. Winter sunrise, my mother stands a widow. I'm also going to read her biography that she published here. Juliet Cyr-Pizzera has been involved with the New Orleans Haiku Society since 2004. She is a psychic and healer who spent her formative years in Hudson, New York, and Tucson, Arizona. Her work has appeared in anthologies, including Katrina Koo, Storm Poems, and Maple Leaf Rag No. 4. A longtime advocate for animal rights, she uses her generous and creative spirit to make a difference in her community. For more information, please visit searcircle.com. So that is her website. And my husband, Leo, and I are still maintaining it. We're still keeping it up and functional. And I'm still working on a project that we had in mind. We're going to be their meditation cards that she envisioned creating. And so that is something that is still underway. And that brings me to this. So Juliet Cyr-Pizzera was a game master. When she would visit her family in Hudson, New York for the holidays, she would lead the family in games. And she also had these really quirky prizes that you'd win if you played a game. And last year, she sent me a few different presents. One of them is a game about Cthulhu. And for those who do not know, Cthulhu is a Lovecraft creation. Juliet and I shared a penchant for the spooky, the macabre, the horrific, including H.P. Lovecraft. So I haven't yet opened Cthulhu. Maybe I'll save that for next year's Haiku Salon. I am going to open this right now because this is a game. It says, create captivating haiku with a roll of the dice. So we'll get the scissors and we'll open it up here and see what we see and see what we can create, or what the roll of the dice will let us create here. Ooh, it's got lots of wrapping. I don't want to. I have to cut it in the back here. This is one of those things that's got layers and layers and layers and layers of plastic attached to it. All right. Okay. Whoa. They just leaped out. They're all leaping out in my lap here. So I have a bunch of them that just leaped into my lap. So let's see what we can make with these. We've got thunder, thunder, thunder me, sneaky, blocks, and the last one is bump. So the first haiku is thunder sneaky, blocks bump. Thunder me sneaky, blocks bump. And let's see what the next one is. Bottle, a blank space, gorgeous, flock, and delightful word, torture. Speaking of horror, of course, that makes me immediately think of Wednesday Addams, the word torture, but that's for another time. All right, this haiku is bottle, gorgeous flock torture. Bottle, gorgeous flock torture. All right. And let's try some more of these little guys. See what we get. We'll do one. We'll stack this one differently. We'll stack this in a row of 3. So it's 3, just like the 3 lines of the haiku here, because there's a haiku is a 3-line poem. It's a 1-breath poem. It is meant to communicate something succinctly. So using the least amount of words to communicate the greatest image. And this one says, window glancing, love. Window glancing, love. All right. And our next one, marvel ritual embraced. Marvel ritual embraced. All right, next one. Jerk return, sang. Jerk return, sang. All right. I'm going to get 3 of them and shake them up. She would love this, I'm sure. So Juliet was a gambler. She did something called psychic gambling, and she did it very well. And she would often win lots of money. Her brother, Joey, who's named after their father, and her both loved to gamble. And so when they were doing family things, if there was just the 2 of them, they'd either be going to a Bob Dylan show, who she was obsessed with. I don't even know how many Dylan shows she went to. It was a lot. It was like way over 20 or 30, because she followed Dylan and would go. Sometimes she'd plan her vacation specifically so she could go to a Dylan concert. She would also go here in New Orleans. We have a place called the Carry Bar. And every year on May 24th or around May 24th, which is Bob Dylan's birthday, they do a Bob Dylan tribute. And she loved going to the Dylan tribute. She would often tell me about it. There was one time where I was supposed to go, and it was just so late I wasn't able to. So I never got to share that with her while she was on this plane. But going back to what I was talking about initially, gambling. So I'm sure she picked out this haiku game because it has 2 of her favorite things combined, writing haiku and gambling, because it's a matter of shaking up dice. So I'm going to shake them up here, and let's see. Whoa! Whoa, it's a live one. It's a live one. Let's see what we've got. We've got me blocks shelter. Me blocks shelter. That's the first one. Let's see what the next one is here. These are great because they have words. Some of them have a blank space on one side, which I guess is, take a breath. Take a breath. Most, though, have words on all the sides of the dice. So this one says, he punted the bottle. He punted bottle. Sorry, I added an extra word there. It's he punted bottle. He punted bottle. All right. Grab a couple more of these suckers. See what we got for this round here. There's stack. Ooh, this is interesting. Her fathom stage. Her fathom stage. So that automatically makes me think of water. And we just had a poem a little while ago about by one of the New Harmony High School students that's about fathoms. Fathom can mean thinking about something. Fathom can also mean the depth of water, usually the ocean. In the case of the poem that I read earlier by the New Harmony student, it was about the depth of the pond. So her fathom stage, her fathom stage. All right, I'm going to turn on a light because the sun is going down on this, one of the shortest nights of the year, and it's starting to get dark, and I want to be able to see people, or I want people to be able to see me, I should say. So I'm going to turn on a light for two. So this way, even if the sun goes down, we'll still be able to see. So we have, at this point, we have about 20 minutes left of this live stream for today. I'm going to do one more, let's see, one more of these poems before I go back to reading from the essay on Shiki. All right, this one says, my wind grace, my wind grace. These are really great. I love these little cards. And for anybody interested in getting this yourself, it says, haikus. Create captivating haiku with a roll of the dice. So they're called haikus. All righty. Let's go back to our, I'm also going to check the Facebook, see if I have any hi, Regina. Regina put a heart on the post here, which is lovely. All right, let's go back to our essay on Shiki's life. All right, so this is him in one of his darker moments, and this is from the 21st of June. How can I spend my day? Isn't there anyone to save me from this pain? To get here, religious people will say that I have arrived at a religious issue. But for me, who does not believe in religion, religion is useless. God's helping hand cannot reach those who do not believe in Christianity. For those who don't believe in Buddhism, it is impossible to spend the day repeating Buddhist prayers. In the extreme, even my breath was dominated by the breaths of others, and it became very painful. It has become much more difficult to harmonize with myself and my surroundings. When morphine is working well, this harmony is a little easier. But these days, it no longer works. I fall into this kind of boundary. If a compassionate soul comes to my bed and tells me something interesting, I will be grateful that it will save me some pain. The only thing I want to refuse is a person who sits face to face and says nothing. Because Shiki is educated, religion could not bring comfort to him. So I have an issue with that, but I'm not gonna take issue with this writer. I'll let you read this later on your own. For anyone wanting to know what I'm reading, I dropped the link of this essay into the chat earlier. It was published in the Journal of Philosophy and Ethics in Healthcare and Medicine It was the 13th issue, and it was December 2019 was when this was published. So, um, in another one here, it says that he's barely able to right himself. So as his as his disease progressed, it became progressively more painful for him to do anything. And so, in the last months of his life, he was dictating to people who would write down articles that he wished to publish in Nippon, the newspaper that he wrote for, or if he wanted to write a poem. So this says, this is from June 22nd of this would have been 1901. Today, the suffering was severe. I was administered morphine twice. In these consecutive entries, it is apparent that Shiki was barely able to write by himself. After that, he had to rely on dictation. And the pain was especially severe the day he wrote this quote. At this time, a letter was delivered to Shiki, who suffered such a disease. He wrote in the same essay, "When I got up this morning, I received a letter from an anonymous sender. He's a stranger to me. This letter is roughly as follows. Sincerely, I read your Bayosho Roku Saku and felt something. So, I will give you some advice. First, rest assured that the Heaven King or Nyorai are always with you. Second, if you cannot believe in the former, just be patient with your current situation, progress of the situation. Leave it to pain. Leave everything as it goes. Leave heaven and earth and let everything appear and disappear to you because of the limit of human power. Third, if you can do neither, cry in confusion, only to die. Once I was on the verge of death, and inevitably, bothered and confused about my body, I could get mental rest by that second way. This was my saving grace. So I can't say that it will help relieve your pain or not. I beg you to try to think of your pain as a bit softer. This kind, clear, and plain letter has caught my heart and my thoughts, and it's almost that are almost completely covered. However, in me, the mental illness is physiologically generated, and when I am in pain, I can't do anything. Even if it is physiologically worrying, there is no other way than to leave it to the current progress. There is no other way than crying, feeling annoyed, and dying at last. But as long as it is physical pain, when it is mild, I can't give up, but say that there is no means of comfort. When it comes to advanced pain, I can't just be comfortable, but I feel like I can't give up. Probably I can still not give up. Even if I was lying on the sick bed year round, day and night, and always enjoy looking up at the bonsai tree that is 3 feet high when I was a little distressed by morphine, I want to laugh at myself, who was bothered a little while ago. If I knew that I was the same person when I laughed, those who laugh at my annoyance would all be laughed at by me if each changed their position and could not escape, having a hearty laugh. So again, he wrote that on June 21st of 1901, which was about a year before he died. Okay, and I believe Regina has, all right, she has sent me a few more poems. So these are some more works that were sent to her or that she's sending here so that I can share them. And this one actually, oh, this is amazing. So this is a poem by Itza, and it actually does have an accompanying illustration that's in Japanese here on the side. And it says, "Grasshopper, do not trample to pieces the pearls of bright dew. Grasshopper, do not trample to pieces the pearls of bright dew. And that poem is by Itza, Kobayashi Itza. His name in English translates to cup of tea. And David Lanoux. So the New Orleans Haiku Society was co-founded by two people, Jeanette Downing, who is an award-winning children's musician and children's author, and David Lanoux, who is a professor at Xavier University. David is one of the foremost authorities of Itza. He's translated a lot of Itza's work from Japanese to English. Up until COVID lockdown, he would travel to Japan on a regular basis. And so I encourage you, when you have time, to please look up the work of David Lanoux and the beautiful poems of Itza that he's translated. In fact, since I've said that, I am going to drop this right now into this link here into the chat for you to peruse later. This is something that David just published about the New Orleans Haiku Society. So, oh, I won't let me do it because the link is too long. All right. Okay, I'll try it again. And if not, I've already put it up on Facebook. So if this won't let me post this in the chat here now, it is on my Facebook page. Nope, it's not going to let me do it. The link is too long. It won't let me share it this way. So anyone interested in seeing it or learning more about the New Orleans Haiku Society, if you go to my Facebook page, which is my name, which is Karel, Carol, Sloan, Sloane, Bookbinder, Boekbinder. If you go to my page, you'll find the link about the New Orleans Haiku Society. Okay, now some more things that, let's see. This is by Basho, and it also has a lovely, it's also in Japanese characters as well. So this Basho poem, Summer Grasses, Traces of Dreams of Ancient Warriors. Summer grasses, traces of dreams of ancient warriors. All right, so Regina has to sign off. She says thank you, and she's grateful, and big hugs. And yes, and big hugs back to you, Regina. Regina is an amazing woman in her own right. As I mentioned earlier, she facilitates the art group at New Harmony High, which is here in New Orleans. She is also has a piece of property off of Claiborne Avenue that she's going to be emerging as a tea room. And that will be, all I can say about that is stay posted, because we have things planned for that space in the future. We have things planned for the coming spring on Earth Day, which will be April 22nd, 2023. And then she has her own plans for the physical. What we have planned for it is while it's still an empty lot, because at the moment it's an empty lot on Claiborne Avenue, right at the bottom of the overpass. And her tea room, that's probably a couple more years down the road where the actual physical tea room is going to be built. So we have about 10 more minutes of this live stream for today. So I think I might roll a couple more poems here with this fabulous gift that Juliet Sear-Pizarra gave me. So we'll roll the poetry dice and see what we come up with here. Let's see what we got. We've got melodic, precious, gentle. Melodic, precious, gentle. And our next one here. Parallel, glorious, violet. Parallel, glorious, violet. And that could be talking about New Orleans right this minute, because we're getting close to sunset here on one of the shortest nights of the year. So right now here it's Central Time and it's 4:20 and the sun is going down. And so parallel, glorious, violet is pretty close to what's happening as we speak here. All right, we'll get 3 more. Give the dice a little rattle and see what we come up with. All right. Ooh, it's the second time this word has popped up here. Torture, embraced cover. Torture, embraced cover. Ooh, chilling. All right. Here's another one. Nerve, hoped, gentle. Nerve, hoped, gentle. Nerve, hoped, gentle. All right, I'm going to read a couple of poems from the New Orleans Haiku Society. So we published a book called, it was a chat book, and it was called Katrina Ku, Storm Poems. And we published it in 2006. And all proceeds of the modest sales were used to support art education in New Orleans. And this is a small selection of the Katrina Ku. Long gas lines fueling tempers. Long gas lines fueling tempers by Johnette Downing. In piles by the curb, a house with no secrets. In piles by the curb, a house with no secrets. That one is by Vaughn Banting. Unequally divided, pre-storm, post-storm, life. Unequally divided, pre-storm, post-storm, life. And that one is by Juliet Elizabeth Pizarro. Home after the storm, my calendar still in August. Home after the storm, my calendar still in August. That one is by Samantha Klein. I'm going to plunk some suggestions. So as I mentioned earlier, Juliet was a game mistress and would facilitate these games for her family. So I'm plopping one right now, a link for online word games into the chat here. So for people who are interested or want to participate and do their own word games after this live stream has ended, there's a link with some fabulous suggestions. And I'm also going to take a moment here to look up some of Shiki's artwork, because I really would like to drop that into the link as well, because he did create a bunch of beautiful arts. So I'm going to drop this link into the chat as well. So for anyone not familiar with Shiki before today, you'll have a few things to look at, and you can do your own. You can continue your own exploration. So I just dropped it in the chat. So when the live stream is over, you can peruse and you can pursue your own investigation of Shiki, who was an incredible human being. He fought through great physical difficulty up until the very end of his life. And he's a role model, not only as a writer and an illustrator, he's a role model for how to navigate really difficult life circumstances. He was bedridden for many years of his life, and yet he continued to create work. He continued to literally work. He was writing for a newspaper up until right around the time of his death, still publishing articles. I just found another really great link that I'm going to drop into our live stream chat for those interested in learning more about him. Yep. So That's another good resource about him and his work. All right. And another one here, another link. And drop this into our chat as well. Also about Shiki and his life and work. And we have about 4 minutes or so left. So let me try some more of these haiku dice here that are courtesy of the beautiful Juliet Sear Pizarra, who is now among the angels. Let's see what we get. What do the dice say? Okay. All right. So our first poem here is Simple Please, Dilemma. Simple Please, Dilemma. Let's see our next one here. Swell leaves trouble. Swell leaves trouble. And one more here. As I mentioned earlier, these things are great because they have words on all sides, except they have one open space, which I'm guessing means we need to breathe, right? We need to be mindful always of taking a breath. And haiku are a one breath poem. They're meant to be spoken in a breath. In Japanese, that means 5-7-5, 5 syllables for the first line, 7 syllables for the second, and 5 syllables for the third. However, if you are not a speaker of Japanese, or you're not writing in Japanese and you're writing in English or another language, it's meant to be whatever you can say in the briefest amount of time that still makes sense. So the one that stands out for me is one that I shared earlier. They were a guest and they came to the New Orleans Haiku Society meeting at the Ladder Library. And the poem that they shared was Crows Punctuate Snow. Crows punctuate snow. And it's a poem I've never forgotten. I don't remember the writer of that poem, unfortunately. I know she was a guest and she was from Metairie, from a Metairie writing group. Metairie is a town that's one town over from New Orleans. And I don't remember her name, the author's name, but I remember the poem. And that was years ago that I heard that poem. Okay, let's see. Here's another one from our dice. Logical stay giant. Logical stay giant. All right. Grab a couple more of these. Shake up. See what we get for our poems. In our last closing minutes here. Okay. This one. Ground clever, tangible. Ground clever, tangible. All right, next one. Journey glorious, please. Journey glorious, please. All right, another one. Flock mature leaves. Flock mature leaves. That kind of sounds like what's happening right here. So in New Orleans for the last couple of days, the temperature has been hovering somewhere between 28 and 32 degrees. So at the moment, all of our leaves, for those of us who garden, are covered. They're wrapped. And mature leaves are we do actually have some trees here that change color. Crepe myrtle and red oak are some of those. So that's been happening. So flock mature leaves is something that's been going on here. And since we're at the end of our time, I'm going to share the last The last message from the dice is an open space. Write your own haiku. Discover your own favorite haiku poems. And from Regina, Serafina, and I, happy holidays and many blessings to you and your families.